kind of person who takes things virtually lying down. But for this one instance, I ask you to kindly put up with me. I hope to make this time very worthwhile for your time that you spent here. And so thank you, Rashmiji, and thank you everybody else. Thank you also, Dr. Suman, for giving this opportunity.
Thank you so
I'm going
much, sir. Thank you. We are really obliged. We never thought that this sort of commitment is there. Thank you so much.
it's my
We
pleasure
are
entirely.
indebted, sir. Indebted, truly.
My pleasure, entirely my pleasure. So I'm going to say a few quick words about
Mhm.
plasma. Look, I have to first up say, everybody in the country who is working towards mobilizing even one person towards plasma is a hero, and there is not enough words to thank such a person who makes such a big effort, because as I will share with you as time goes on, as I'm sure that you are familiar with yourself as well, it is a life-saving therapy. It is something that will make the difference between somebody is living and somebody is dying. And so I will say a few quick words about plasma and the way it began here in Mumbai. When COVID was still about, I think in the month of April end, beginning of May, actually, April end, beginning of May. At that time, we were still talking about the importance of plasma in Mumbai. At which time, in one of the hospitals in South Mumbai, where I was not yet attached to at that time, there was this wonderful lady. She was an IAS officer, and she was actually dying of COVID. And so it became a matter as to what else can we do? What else can we do? And it became a matter as to, can we try plasma? Unfortunately, at that time, the only plasma that was available was in one hospital in Mumbai. And so a few requests were made and a few people were contacted. And these people ended up saying, okay, fine. In her case, yes, we will make an exception, because she was somebody who was very popular. She was very popular, and that everybody in the entire state government machinery was was keen that she should, come out of this. And in her case, I had the pleasure of being able to organize the plasma for her, and she made a very, remarkable recovery. She did very well, and she went back home, and she then became the brand ambassador. And so she then also wrote, from our good officers, she wrote to ICMR, which is the Indian Council of Medical Research, and to Ministry of Health, Ministry of External Affairs, to a number of people. And she was very forthright in saying that, look, because I've been a beneficiary of plasma, I'd like that everybody should be able to, see the benefits of plasma. And that is how the whole concept of plasma started off. Once it became obvious that plasma is something that will benefit a number of people, so long as you're able to start it at the right time and time it correctly. You've got to pick the right patient and you've got to time it correctly.
Mhm.
So let me then start about what is it that's about plasma? What is it that we're trying to do?
Mhm.
The
Sir,
story.
uh, I would like to interrupt here that in sir, whatever we as a general public come to know of corona, of plasma, is through the forward messages or through social medias or media. We are for the first time listening to a doctor. So, sir, if you can start with some information on corona also, like what is the scenario in India? What is the misconception regarding it? Is there a need for panic? Because I think that the panic is mainly because we don't have proper information.
That's a fair comment, Rashmiji. So let me then start with the basics of corona. Okay,
Mhm.
corona as it is, corona is not new. The COVID-19, the N COVID-19 comes out of the term that corona has six kind of strains, 1 to 6, from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The seventh strain of corona, which is the N COVID, that is the seventh strain. And that is what is new, because that has been described in 2019, December of 2019. this is what is new about the nCoV-19, all right?
So,
Because it got described in 2019. So it is called the nCoV-19. And it is the seventh strain which is different to the previous six strains of COVID. Now, what is peculiar about this strain? It is unlike any other strain of COVID. It is something that is very different because first thing is we know nothing about this, all right? What happens is when you say, what is the oldest virus that is known to human being? The oldest viruses are those viruses which have been around for over 10,000 years. Over 10,000 years. So when you say that there is a virus that we know for all of about 7 months or 8 months of 2020, we can't even imagine to say that yes, we know enough about the virus. So every day for us also is a new learning of the virus. And so that is where we are right now. And so
so we are really the layman. So can you tell us what do you mean by strain when you say strain, seventh strain?
a strain is like uh, in the most basic definition, it is like how should I describe it? Something which is going to cause a particular kind of disease that has more than one sibling or a cousin brother or a cousin sister. Right?
Okay.
One family
Mhm.
has four such strains, four such siblings.
Okay. So this
These
is the seventh
siblings,
one.
correct. These
Okay.
siblings are related to each other. All these siblings are related to each other, and because they are related to each other, you say, okay, they are four people of the same family. That is what a strain means. It is, of course, it's an oversimplification.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, that's what a strain means.
Yeah, so that is enough for us.
Yeah. So that's where you are when you say a strain. When you say, look, there is a bad strain. You say you've got an influenza. You've got something like the common cold. So what happens with the common cold? You've got a little bit of cough, cold, fever, body ache. When you get something which is more than just a cough, cold, fever, and body ache, you say, oh, looks like you've got a bad strain of the influenza. That is
Mm.
what a strain means, right?
Okay, sir.
That is what a strain means. Of course, like I said, this is an oversimplification, but it will suffice for the purposes of this definition. So that is what we are dealing with the coronavirus right now.
Mm-hmm.
What we think we know about the virus is so little that it is not going to be possible to compress 8 months of knowledge and say, yeah, we are familiar with this is what damage that the virus can cause. So it is going to be taking us years and years and years before we can understand what this virus can do. Years, if not decades. And so to say that yes, the virus is going to be causing this amount of damage is a it's a big assumption. It's a big assumption that we know what the virus is going to be doing to us. So again, so when we say how ready are we to talk about any treatment, this is how little we know, and this
Mm-hmm.
is how much we need to start preparing as time goes on from here.
Okay, sir. So what is the scenario in respect to the world of India in coronavirus situation?
So what is the scenario at this time in India? If you look at the total global figures
Mm-hmm.
of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
the mortality, that means the total number of people who will unfortunately succumb
Mm-hmm.
because of the coronavirus, that figure is actually of the lowest in the world, one 1.8, 1.9 to about 2.4, 2.5%. As against this, if you look at the figures from Italy or the United Kingdom or the United States or other parts of Europe, that figure is anywhere from about 7.5 to about 15%, right? So the total number of people who are going to have a problem in India are actually going to be much, much lesser, already has been, and continues to be a lesser figure as compared to the rest of the world. I have a suggestion to make here.
Mhm.
Why not let me listen to your questions and I can keep going on from there, rather than me talking all the time.
No, sir, it's fine. We are getting all the answers. This is our we have collated all the questions. So we wanted to know from means on different questions. Like we
Okay.
wanted to hear from you. What are the misconceptions you get to hear?
Okay. All right. So I think from here, let's talk about
Mm-hmm.
how can corona be spread from one person to another.
Okay.
The commonest way is that by droplet. That means if I have the infection, if I sneeze or if I cough, or if I have nasal secretions, whereby I'm actually going to be touching a surface that you are going to be then touching, like a tabletop or a doorknob or a lift button or any of those things, then I'm going to be passing on the virus from my secretions to some part of you, which is going to then pass it on to your nose or your eyes or some part of your body, that will then take the virus into your system, and then you start to get features of the infection, right? The good thing about the virus is that in the vast majority, about 85-90% people will make a full recovery. That means people may not even know that they've got the infection. They will make a full recovery, and they will start to make what is called an antibody. That means an antibody is simply it's a reaction. What happens is when you have a foreign protein or an antigen, it will make an antibody. That is the way the human body is structured, right? So it will make an antibody which shows that you have been exposed to the virus in the past, and that in doing so, you're then protected against the virus in future. That's what an antibody will tell you. So you do a blood test, or you do what is called a test called a CLIA, chemiluminescence assay, that will tell you whether or not you have the antibody. Once you've got that, then you are not likely to be getting infected again or being passing on the infection to somebody else. That's so far as the antigen antibody reaction is concerned. Once you've got this part, then you are going to be in a position where you could donate your plasma, so
Yeah.
that there may be some people who may not be as lucky as you, who are actually fighting life and death because they are not recovering from the COVID infection. And such people may require the plasma to help them overcome this particular kind of a situation. That is what is the biggest role of giving plasma to somebody, so that this person who has recovered from the infection will be able to do something life saving to another person who may not have been as lucky as you in recovering.
Mm-hmm.
So once you've got the antibody titer, then you need to go to a place where you can be tested as to how soon you can be giving the plasma. That means a plasma basically is one part of your blood component. Like you have given, if any one of you has given a blood donation, that is what a plasma is going to be. Plasma is one part of the blood that is separated by a machine inside a hospital, whereby this machine will take out the blood components. One of them is plasma. And this plasma is then given to a patient who is unwell or in an intensive care unit or in critical care or on a ventilator in a hospital. And that this is meant to be making a difference in helping this person recover, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, pardon me. What are the problems that we are having with plasma? Our biggest problem is prejudice. All right. Most times, what happens is that we talk to patients, we tell them that, listen, you have recovered from COVID. Please come to hospital and donate your plasma. Most times, patients will ask you, are you sure that if I come back to hospital, I will not get the infection again? Now, I can understand some part of reservations, but it is not required. You don't have to worry about that kind of thing. Now, in today's times, you will find that people will get the most sterile, the most aseptic kind of procedures, whereby they will be able to give the plasma without putting any risk to themselves. But like I keep saying, that kind of plasma coming out of one patient's blood who has recovered from COVID can be life-saving, can be life-saving. So most times what we run into is mostly the prejudice that comes out of this kind of a procedure.
Yeah,
But
sir.
yes.
We have come across some of the questions like people have, first of all, sir, when does the antibody get start building?
Okay. So once you have recovered from COVID, you will take anywhere from about 2 weeks to about 10 weeks before you will start to make enough antibodies in your system.
Okay.
So again, what also happens is that sometimes there may be antibodies that may be in your system for a long period of time. Sometimes they may be there for a short period of time. I tend to find that if you wait for about 8 weeks time, you'll find that such patients will, if there are antibodies in your system after about 8 weeks of time, then you should be having enough antibodies to make a plasma donation that will help somebody. So
After
anyway,
8 weeks of infection.
after 8 weeks after the infection is over in your system.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So what then happens is that there are some people who can or cannot give plasma. For instance, women who have had childbirth, they cannot be giving plasma because there is a strong association with something called the HLA, pregnancy and HLA. People who are uncontrolled diabetics, uncontrolled hypertensives, they cannot be giving plasma as well because there are problems with giving donation of blood in such patients. So there are some people who will be evaluated by a hospital. A good detailed history will be taken, and that such patients will be then asked to either not give the plasma or come back at a later stage. That's how you decide as to who are the people who can be given, who can be plasma donors, who are plasma recipients, who can be given plasma. Anybody can be given plasma. Anybody. It doesn't matter. You can be in any particular age group, but you can get the plasmas because, like I said, it can be life saving.
So can children below age of 10 also get plasma?
Yes, they can get plasma, but they can't donate it.
Okay. Only in the age group of 18 to 60.
That's
They
right.
can
They
donate.
can donate it. Yes, but children below the age of, I mean, children as little as 6 months have received plasma, so that's not a
Okay.
problem.
Okay. Okay. And sir, so is there any chance of transmitting any disease through plasma?
So you actually undergo the screening for those infections that can be transmitting plasma. So people who've got hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HIV, those conditions where that can be transmitted through plasma. When you are giving, before you give your plasma, you are screened for those conditions. Once you have cleared these tests, only then you are allowed to give the plasma. So the chance of something like that going through is very, very unlikely.
Okay. So what are the tests that one has to do before giving the plasma?
Yeah, so mostly what happens is that there are those blood tests. Like I said, the HIV, the hepatitis B, the hepatitis C, all of these things are done before you can give the plasma in these situations. Without them, you're not going to be giving the plasma.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay.
So yes, sir.
So
So
that's so far as giving the plasma. Now, how often can you give the plasma? Suppose you've given plasma, say today. When can you give it again? Can you give it again? Yes, you can. You can give the plasma again in about 15 days time, 1 month's time. There are those patients who have given plasma 5 and 6 times now. You can keep doing it without a problem. It's like it's not something that's going to be harming you. So you can keep doing it, and that should not be a problem.
okay.
Okay.
So one more question that donor usually ask, uh, that what is the cost of plasma? Like,
Plasma at
and
this time is free.
is completely free
Yeah.
because there is so much black marketing regarding it. So wanted to know about it.
I know what you're saying. I've heard about that as well. But there is no indication for charging plasma at this time. As
Okay.
of now, it is completely free.
Okay. And so for how long we can store plasma?
Plasma can be stored for up to 12 years.
12 years. And so, and a very important question, can plasma, suppose a COVID recovered patient's plasma can be used for other diseases also, or it can only be used for COVID purpose? I
No.
heard that plasma has a lot of usage.
So yes, you're absolutely right. Plasma can be used in a number of other viral conditions,
Mm-hmm.
number of other conditions also. Some hematological disorders, some viral conditions. A number of conditions can be used where plasma can be used for patients who are unwell. But they have to be customized. You can't just say there's somebody who's got, say, hemophilia, or somebody who's got a cancer. Let's give him plasma. It has to be customized, but it can be used.
Same plasma can be used?
Same plasma can be used, yes, but it, like I
Okay.
keep saying, it has to be customized.
Okay, okay. And sir, donor also asks, if I donate my antibodies, will my antibodies reduce in my own body?
So
The,
that's a very good question. Now, antibodies are like recurrent deposits. The more you invest in an antibody, it only grows. It doesn't get lesser. So in
oh,
by giving antibodies, by giving plasma, you're only going to find that your antibodies get more and more, not less and less.
okay. Thank you so much, sir. It is a big question that is being asked and we can't answer it. And sir, can a symptomatic patient also donate plasma?
Yes, asymptomatic patients can also donate plasma, but you've got to have the right amount of antibody titers in your system before
Mhm.
you can donate the plasma.
Okay, sir. So we also heard a misconception. I don't know whether it is a misconception, and that uh, the virus also spreads through human excreta, through blood. Uh, I don't know whether the information is right or wrong.
So there is some evidence that there are viral particles
Uh-huh.
that are found in excreta. There is some evidence, but whether these particles are actually active viruses or not, we don't know. We don't know as yet. So there can be a virus which is broken down. The entire virus can be broken down into 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fragments. You may be actually able to see that broken down fragment in human excreta. Whether it is actually live virus or not, we don't know. We don't know. So as of now, like I keep saying, there are a number of things that we are still learning about the whole virus itself. But
Mhm.
as of now, we should use that as a potential site of of maybe it is going to be clarified over the next few months' time. But as of now, you should treat all this evidence with a little bit of a pinch of a salt. Unless proven otherwise, you should assume that this is potential, active virus in the excreta of human beings.
Okay, sir. And sir, we are hearing a lot of news on Russia has already got its vaccine. Where do we as Indians stand on our vaccine?
So I'll tell you, the story about any vaccine development
Mhm.
is that it takes between 3 and 5 years for a vaccine to develop. Right? Anywhere, if you look at vaccines anywhere in the world, it
Uh-huh.
takes about 3 to 5 years for a vaccine to develop. When you say that you've got a vaccine that has gotten ready in about 6 months' time, 8 months' time, 9, 10 months' time, all right? When you say that you've got a vaccine inside 1 year's time, the big concern is, have you missed a step, all right? In the process of going through, suppose there are 1,000 steps. In the process of having gone through every step, when you have compressed the process into 1 year's time, have you missed a step? And so in doing that, are you then going to be, assuming that you know everything and that you will find out as time goes on that this is not the most optimal vaccine? So I think that, I'm myself of the opinion that finding a vaccine in such a short period of time will be wonderful news. But I just want to be careful about making sure that this is not going to be compressing a process that should be harming the overall recovery of COVID.
Mhm. Okay. So also I have a question, like I heard that this virus mutates. So sir, first for a layman, can you make us understand what is mutation? And if the virus is mutating, will the vaccine be really effective?
Both are very good questions, Rashmiji. What is a mutation? When you say that you've got, say, in one family, you've got, say, twins. Now, twins are meant to be identical to each other, right? They're meant to be, not always, but they're meant to be identical to each other. You find that one of the twins is more clever or more talented, and the other one is not quite as clever and talented, it's a little bit slow. All right, this is a mutant. This is somebody who is a better version of what was there to start with. That's what is a mutant. That means there is a variation of the strain, like I mentioned a little while ago. There is a variant of the strain that is not going to be behaving in the same way as it was when it first got discovered or manufactured. That's what is the simplest way of explaining what a mutant is, right? Now, what happens with viral infections? Viral infections you'll find that viral infections will keep going into variants of their own original self because of a number of reasons. It is one of the most important protective mechanisms of a virus to ensure that the human body does not do everything to destroy it. All right, that's what viruses will do. And there is an old adage in medicine that you so much as look at a virus and it will change itself. It will change itself. So you are going to find that there are going to be some variants of the virus all the time, and that when you've got these variants, it is only for the virus to protect itself so that it does not come in the way of the virus living long enough. Otherwise, all viruses, once the virus is discovered, if it does not evolve and it does not protect itself, it will die a natural death very soon, very soon. So the whole process requires that the virus protect itself, and this is one of the ways it protects itself. All right. So that is one. The other thing is, as you're already asking, what is going to happen to the vaccine? The vaccine will have to adapt itself as well. That means if this vaccine, if it is going to be covering for say 100 different kinds of variations from the original virus, once the virus has changed, then the vaccine also requires to be changing. So it's actually a to and fro process. At some stage, the virus is going to be winning. At other stages, the vaccine is going to be winning. That's why over a period of several years, vaccines also change, viruses also change, and it's a to and fro process. It goes on. That's how vaccines are refined, and viruses also evolve to protect themselves.
Okay. Sir, thank you for this answer. Now I know what decision to make when the vaccine comes. So, any medicine that you suggest or anything that you suggest for boosting the immunity?
I don't know if there's any one medicine, Rashmiji. I
Mhm,
think the three most important things, in fact, the five most important things that I can tell you
mhm,
is that please get at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep every day, 5 days a week. Please drink at least 3 to 4 liters of water every day. Please also keep a boundary for your work, not to allow your work to come inside. Have enough time to spend with your family. Not to read your WhatsApp messages any more than once in 3 days' time, and keep away from the media. That's probably the five most important things that you can do to keep your immunity up.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, also, what are the other treatments for this COVID? I heard all are trials, but there are some medicine like remdesivir or something.
Now,
So,
none of these treatments are curative. They
mhm.
are all known to decrease the total amount of duration of illness, but none of them are life-saving. None of them. As of now, the only thing that can be life-saving is what you're already doing, which is plasma. Other than that, there is no treatment as
Mhm.
in treatment that can be described as life.
Okay. And so one more thing I wanted to ask, there is a lot of forwards regarding the virus is also leading to clots in the lungs or heart. So is it a truth or a misconception that we have?
No, it's the truth actually. Unfortunately, what we think we know is, you say if you've got COVID, you should be short of breath. That means your lungs are involved.
Mm-hmm.
But there are every other organ in the body is affected by COVID, from your brain to your eyes to your spine
Mm-hmm.
to your throat to your patient's lungs, heart, liver, kidney, bones, joints, blood vessels, everything, everything. So yes, as time goes on, we will know more about COVID as time goes on. But as of now, we are simply learning on a day-to-day basis as to how much COVID affects every single organ of your patient's system. It's important to have a strategy about making sure that none of these organs go into a complication.
Mm. Okay, sir. And so also I heard that the antibodies last till 2.5 months or 3 months time. So is there again a chance of getting COVID after 3 months or 4 months time?
We don't know about that. I hope I hope that's not the case,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't know about that. So we'll probably know more as time goes on. But as of now, I don't think we know enough.
Okay, sir. So, sir, also as we think that there is some mischiefs from China and that's why we got this pandemic. So, do you think what are the future implications of it? How do you see it?
I don't think I don't think we can prepare for something like this, Rashmiji. I think it is something that as time goes on, we will know. I mean, did anybody think that in 2019, if you had asked, suppose you had asked 5 billion people on the planet to say what could have been the first half of 2020, do you think that anybody could have told us that this is how 2020 is going to be?
True,
I
true,
don't
true.
think that anybody can prepare for this. I think that the only thing is to make sure that with the resources that we have to try and do the best that we can. And that means following social norms, following social distancing, wearing our masks, keeping our hands clean as possible, and making sure that if you get an infection, then to see your doctor as soon as possible rather than later. So that is pretty much the only thing that you can do to prepare. Other than that, look, we will know as time goes on, we will know as to how good or how bad things are going to be in the next, maybe, who knows, 1 year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sir. And so, plasma, when should it be given to a patient? When at ventilator or just admitted, early stage, or we should wait and give
So
plasma?
I think that there is more and more evidence that you should give it early rather than late. There
Okay.
is more and more evidence.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that if you've got a patient who is in hospital, in ICU, uh, you should not be waiting for the patient to get worse before you say, let's give him plasma. You should be preempting that and giving the plasma sooner rather than later.
Okay, sir. Okay. Sir, as you can see that we are different organizations working, coming together for plasma. So how do you think we can collaborate together with systems, with government machineries and contribute our part also?
So the most important thing that can be done is to make people aware. That is the most important thing. You've got to be able to talk to people, get them to shed their inhibitions,
Mm-hmm.
drop their prejudices, and keep talking to them so that they come forward and give their plasma. Once you're able to overcome this prejudice, then it gets easier. But overcoming this prejudice is the important part at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there is a huge role that the non-government machinery like your own body has to play. But it has to be ongoing. It can't stop at say 100 donors. It
Mm-hmm.
just has to keep going on and on and on. So I think that the work that you're doing is tremendous, and my deepest regard to all the work that you're doing. It's a thankless job, but it is very important. It is very important because even a single life that can be saved is you will find 1,000 people who will come forward because you've made a difference to one person's life.
Yes, sir. So what is, so you have given your final message also. Anything else that you would like to share from your experience with treating a patient with plasma?
I think that there is always reason to be hopeful, always. There's always reason to be positive and hopeful. I think that, howsoever difficult a situation might appear to be right now,
Mm-hmm.
human nature is such that you will find a way to overcome this and find new frontiers to do good, make a difference in people's lives. And it may appear to be bleak and scratchy from time to time, but there is always reason to be hopeful. So I think that, I mean, please uh, take it from somebody who's been seeing patients day in and day out for the last 5 months' time. Uh, there is always reason to be hopeful, and nobody should ever give up hope.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I think I have asked all the most important questions that I got we collated from friends, families, others. So, sir, thank you. You have answered all of our questions. And it is really very important for us to know these answers, sir. Then only we can contribute more, we can be fearless.
Yes, I agree with you. I think that I'd like to thank you and everybody else within your forum for giving me this opportunity. I'd like to thank Dr. Suman as well for giving me this opportunity. Uh, you've been very patient. I'm very happy to be re-engaged again with all of you at whatever time you think is fine.
Wow,
I
thank you
also,
so much, sir.
yeah, I also like to thank both my sons for giving me this opportunity to to conduct this session while taking a little bit of rest to my neck, because otherwise I would have not been able to do it this way. So thank you everybody one more time.
So we are really indebted to you. Besides all your problems, you came today and you really made a difference, sir. Thank you so much.
My
We will
pleasure.
do our best, whatever we can. I am really thankful to both your sons, to Dr. Suman and you, really. We are indebted, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you
Rashmi.
so
Thank you.
much,
Thank
sir.
you everybody one more time.
Yeah, take care, sir. Thank you. And I really want to thank iPledge team and also all the audience for coming on a Saturday evening and spending time with us to create awareness among your family and friends. I think a lot of fear have gone when you know the answers. Thank you so much for making it a real important talk show. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, iPledge team as well.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. Thank you, Rashmi, for hosting this interactive program. It's very interesting program from iPlus team. Thank you, Dr. Om, for giving the answers to many questions which are means there are in mind, but we don't know the answers to them. So it was a very interactive session, very informative session. Thank you, Rashmi, for hosting this program for us. So let's just end the live show. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.